Welcome to the Patriot Pastor. I'm glad you tuned in today. And if you like what you're listening to, please share it with other people. And also look for me on Facebook, The Patriot Pastor, and Instagram, The Patriot Pastor. Please like, subscribe. That way you get the notifications when I have a new episode. This episode's coming out around Father's Day in 2021. So I wanted to talk about fathers. And my goal for this channel is to engage culture through the lens of Scripture. So it's Father's Day, and I want to talk about the impact of fatherlessness on our society. And then I want to look at God as an example of how we should father our children. So I want to talk about the problem of what we've got in our country right now, and I want to give us some steps forward. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. I don't want to be too long. I found that when I keep it a little bit more concise, you watch more of it. So glad you tuned in. So the father absence crisis in America. Let's talk about that. There is a crisis in America, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. 19.7 million children, more than 1 in 4, live without a father in the home. Consequently, there is a father factor in nearly all of the societal ills facing America today. Let me just shoot straight to the point. That's what I do. A lot of people are talking about the black community. We just came through riots and looting, attacks on police, and this whole Black Lives Matter movement has caused all of us to ask ourselves, what's going on? What are the solutions? How can I, as a responsible American, and if you're a Christian, a responsible Christian, be part of the solution? Hopefully you love your neighbor as yourself, and you love them whether they're black or white or Asian or Latino or a mixture of whatever. Hopefully that is your heart. And if it isn't your heart, I encourage you to have a change of heart, because our actions really aren't going to change unless the core of who we are is lined up. And so in the black community, we see fatherlessness as a huge issue. And so whenever you see fatherlessness, there's problems with the children. There's problems with crime. There's a problem with unwed pregnancies. And so research shows when a child is raised in a father-absent home, he or she is affected in the following ways. Let me give you some hard statistics so this becomes very relevant. Number one, when a child lives in a fatherless home, they have a 4 times greater risk of poverty. 4 times greater risk of poverty. Now, just so you know, this was a 2017 U.S. Census Bureau data. That's where I got my data. And data represent children living without a biological stepfather or adoptive father. No father in the household. They have a 4 times greater risk of poverty. There's 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. A lot of thoughts there. You know, a young woman is missing the love, the affirmation, the support of her father, and is looking somewhere else for it. And guys want to have sex, so she becomes very easy prey for a guy who wants to have sex. And so she's 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen, being raised in a fatherless household. Here's some behavioral problems that we see in these type of households. More likely to have behavioral problems. See, the thing is about a father and a mother working together, they come from different perspectives, but they both help that child to understand some guardrails in life. You can't do that. The word no needs to be clearly understood by children. No, you can't do that. No, that's not acceptable. No, we love you, but we can't allow you to do that. And the father sometimes bring a totally different element. You know, a kid will oftentimes have no problems listening to the mother until they get to be pretty big. Then after a while, you need to look at another bigger human. Like, okay, this guy could take me out. Sometimes it's really kind of like caveman values, where it's like, okay, this human is bigger than me and they can actually stop me. Yes, that's good. That's why fathers need to be there. Fathers need to look at their son and say, listen, you're not doing this. And the son looks at him and think, you know what? I don't think I could take him. And that's a good thing until you reach that point of maturity where those thoughts change and you shift to realize your father is there to love you, to help you, to nurture you. I remember a famous quote from Mark Twain. He said that, when I was 14, my father wasn't that smart, but when I became 21, it was amazing how much smarter he was. What he's saying is that he matured and realized how wise his father was. And that's the way it is. So there's more likely to have more behavioral problems, children are, without a father in the home. There's child abuse, more likely to face abuse and neglect without a father. Here's another kind of a caveman-like explanation, in my opinion, is that people, when they're looking at maybe to attack somebody or retaliate or to come at somebody, well, they look at, well, who are they with? If you got a strong alpha adult male there, that's not happening as much. Even if the adult male isn't there, the person knows that adult male is coming home and lives there, they're going to think twice about it. I have, 4 or 5 guns. I'm not all of that. I'm like 190 pounds, but I work out. Someone who messes with my family is going to face my wrath, whatever that looks like. It could be legal. It could be physical. It could be deadly, depending on what happens, because I'm there. I'm a protector of my children, my wife, my household, my grandchildren. When that person, when that alpha male, that father figure is not there, children are more likely to face abuse and neglect. This is not my opinion. This is based on 2017 U.S. Census Bureau data. They're more likely, they're 2 times greater risk of infant mortality. As it relates to mom and child health, 2 times greater risk of infant mortality. Why is that? Well, my conjecture on that is the woman is having to carry too much responsibility. When she needs to rest, she needs to lay down, she needs some support. Where's the support person? She's having to do whatever she's got to do. And she puts herself that baby in a higher risk for infant mortality. Substance abuse is an issue that is commonplace in a fatherless home. More likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. They're trying to escape the pain, the void, or they're being tempted from bad sources and they're getting sucked in without another voice to say, no, I love you. Like we were talking this week, my wife and I shared a story of one of our daughters was out. She's being influenced by some people making bad choices. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. My wife left the house, showed up at the bar, and texted our daughter and said, listen, I'm here, I'm at the place. And basically my daughter said, leave I'm not coming home. So that it reached a breaking point. But the breaking point, because a parent was there and I was able to support her and there was a teamwork there, then our daughter was able to get off a path of going down a wrong direction. So that's why fathers and mothers working together is so critical. Otherwise, you're going to see more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. Incarceration, more likely to go to prison in a fatherless home. Why? Well, I think about it right now. Kids are not used to being told no. We have a good number of children from a local neighborhood here, a lot of single parents, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of fatherless homes, okay? These kids don't understand authority. They don't understand structure. They don't understand rules. We're having a challenge with them in our Boys and Girls Clubs and our Vacation Bible School. They're not used to being told no. So what happens? Unless you're learn to face authority early on in life, then you have these bigger shells of authority like law enforcement that are like the last line of defense where like, no, in our society, we have come together with these laws. We agree how we should treat one another. And these people are paid to enforce those laws. Guess what? Then they're bucking up against the law enforcement. Now we got all this defund the police. No, we got to have children that are parented and taught to act right. Why do we have these problems with... Listen, when you're taught to respect authority, let's say a law enforcement officer is off the chain. Let's say they're misbehaving themselves. Let's say they're having a bad day. Guess what? You don't resist arrest. You make sure you get in there. You get your attorney involved. You can get the guy fired. There is due process. When you resist arrest, you are forcing process in the moment, and now you're causing a cop to make a judgment call about his life and your life on on that moment, and it often doesn't go well. Do not resist arrest. But that happens because children aren't taught to respect authority as children. Incarceration goes up. You are more likely to go to prison when you are raised in a fatherless household. Child obesity. 2 times likely to suffer obesity. You know, I hurt one of our daughters by just simply saying to my wife, honey, you know, she's gaining weight. She don't think she's eating right. You know, we gotta say something, and you know, things weren't being said enough, and I said some things in a loving way. I thought it hurt her feelings. I don't know what to do, but in my raw, imperfect way, our child got back on track, and so, you know, fathers and mothers working together to help them is key. And the other thing is finances. When you have a lack of finances, oftentimes you don't have the money to buy the better foods, like fresh vegetables, like fresh meats, like just better quality stuff. And you're settling for going to the convenience store, or you know, you're so tired, you're just living hand to mouth, and you're just surviving. You're not really thriving. And so there's maybe a couple explanations for why there's child obesity, a higher incidence of child obesity in fatherless homes. But no matter what, that's what the stats say. 2 times more likely to suffer obesity when you're raised in a fatherless home. Here's another thing, crime. You're more likely to commit crime. More likely to commit crime in a fatherless home. We kind of alluded to that earlier about incarceration, more likely to go to prison. Well, you're more likely to commit crime. I think it goes back to not facing authority early on. You know, my father probably spanked me maybe twice. My mother did 95, 98% of spanking. And she was solid. She was thorough. If she promised you a spanking 4 hours earlier, if she couldn't get to it, maybe you're at church or at an activity, when you got home, you got it. And you learned that whatever she said was the law. And then my dad, he pretty much was softer than my mother. He only spanked me in a rage. It was an absolute rage. It was the closest thing to child abuse. I mean, he didn't abuse me, but he was just so angry. And most of the time, he got into my head. He got into my sister's head and appealed to our heart. But the bottom line is, we faced authority as children. We faced our father's authority. We faced our mother's authority. We didn't need other authorities to have to come down on us. They taught us what was right and wrong. We followed that. That's not happening in fatherless homes. Some single moms, they're doing some great job. They're doing a great job. Grandmother's stepping in. It's too much sometimes. You know, especially living in inner city. Let's just be straight. Let's talk about black men. Okay? How many times? I've personally heard this story so many times. A young black man, the father's not there, the mother's raising him, she's working hard, grandmother's trying to pick up the slack. The exact words that have come out of their mouth, the streets were calling for me. The streets were pulling me. I knew I could sell drugs. I knew I could be a runner. I knew I have a Puerto Rican friend that did that in Philadelphia. Listen, I'm telling you, we've heard this story too many times. And you have these exceptions to the rule where people are able to transcend above and beyond the streets, above the temptation of the criminal opportunity in the streets, whether you be black, white, Latino, Asian, whatever. But there's a high incidence in the black community, and it often stems from a fatherless household. We need to talk about this more than defunding the police. This is a root cause. This is a root problem. And in fact, if people who say, I've had actually people call me racist for having this comment. I think that people call me racist for saying that are deceived and dangerous because they're not willing to face what is. So education is affected by living in a fatherless home. 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. 2 times more likely to drop out of high school when you're raised in a fatherless household. This is not good. You know, I could go on and on and on. This is. I spent this whole episode defining the problem. In fact, I'm just gonna stop here in a few minutes because I'm gonna save the second episode for the solution. Okay? But this is the problem, and it's very important that when you listen to the news, especially CNN, MSNBC, some of these other very liberal-leaning networks who've understood that their demographic that they appeal to, that listens to them, is more liberal-leaning. So they feed them what they want to hear so they can get the advertising dollars so they can make money so that the higher-ups are happy and everybody makes their job. We don't have true journalism anymore, folks. We don't. Everyone, each network is kind of finding their slice of the population that they appeal to, and they appeal to their base. And that's the way it works. And unfortunately, it's not true journalism. So you have to distrust the journalism. I got kind of tired of Donald Trump saying fake news, but you know what? He was right in a lot of respects. He really was right in a lot of respects. So I want you to hear this. I want you to know this. That's it for today. I'm going to wrap it up by saying, don't miss the next episode. I'm going to talk about the solutions to fatherlessness and how we can turn this around. Thank you so much. Glad you tuned in. If you like it, share it with somebody. Make sure you subscribe, turn on the notifications so you get notified when I offer new content. God bless you, and thanks for tuning in. Thank you for watching my Patriot Pastor YouTube channel. I want to remind you to please go find me on Facebook and Instagram as the Patriot Pastor. Let's rebuild our foundations together.